All right, next up is the story of a school teacher who begins to hear a sound that no one else around her can hear in this adaptation of author Jordan Tannahill's novel, The Listeners. And the film is titled the same thing, directed by Janixa Bravo. And of course,
Hmm.
this was a TIFF release, The Listeners, and actually it was a series. Watched the first couple of episodes of it. Charles, you did not see this story starring Rebecca Hall, who directed Passing?
I did not see that, but it's got a nice pedigree with Janixa Bravo and Rebecca Hall, so sounds interesting. Tell me about it.
Well, man, this film, man, is the story of, as I said earlier, a school teacher, man, who one day starts to hear sounds, and you know how the proverbial joke, did you hear that? And somebody go, no, I didn't hear nothing. So she really is starting to hear something, and it's funny because initially at the beginning, people started to think that there's something wrong with her, or her immediate family. And then she sort of meets somebody else who's going through the same condition. And this kind of evolves into more of the story. But Rebecca
Hmm.
Hall, man, it's very interesting. I've been watching her career and watching her and work for a couple of decades. And then she made that transition to telling her personal story several years ago called Passing, which I thought was really interesting and got an opportunity to spend some time around Rebecca Hall. So it's very interesting that, Charles, I was listening to another major actor last night who has directed several films and talked about directing is fine, but it's the acting is what pays the bills, man. So it's a very interesting thing. And I think about Rebecca Hall in this story. Janixa Bravo, of course, who did Zola. Really, really solid, young, upcoming director. This film, man, from what I know about it, Charles, in watching it, it made an impact, but not a deep impact with me. And, this is a part of when we're in this sort of festival bubble, when you're watching lots of films in a short period of time. There's some stories that sort of grab you, and then there are others that are sort of on the periphery. And the listeners, for me, and I can honestly probably tell you this, Charles, that it's probably something that I probably need to have revisited maybe one or two more times because I liked where I thought the story was going, but I really saw it kind of like in a small burst, got in, saw it. It sort of, as I said earlier, made limited impact with me. And then I sort of moved on and I'm like, it's okay. I thought that Hall was solid. I like Bravo's direction in it, and I guess the storytelling in it, but not enough that, as I said, it made no impact. And I'm not going to use an old joke that I used to use, which now we know in our society is probably culturally insensitive when you're comparing films to certain ethnicities of food. But this is really a film or really a story that I saw that it was good in the moment. And, an hour later, I was like, yeah, you know. So, as far as the listeners is concerned, I think I'm not sure because a lot of these stories that you see specifically at TIFF sometimes may get distribution a little later on, but they may not get distribution inside of what we're calling the festival window. Like films are sold, bought and sold during the festival, and then some after the fact. I could have sworn, Charles, if you have a shot to look it up, did the listeners ever get picked up by anybody?
I don't see it I don't see it having a outlet yet. No.
All right. So, as I said one more time, Rebecca Hall stars. Um, and I'm trying to think if there's anybody else. I know Ollie West is in the film, directed by Janixa Bravo. The playwright and author of the book that the film or the series is based on is Jordan Tannahill, who's a Canadian. But outside of that, I think that's another part of the issue where, you've got Rebecca Hall, who's sort of the story is through her point of view. And to me, like I said, it's okay. I would give it a C. Only because I think I would like to rewatch it again to
Hmm.
see if it's something that, like I'm missing something and there's some deeper meaning to the story. But we love Janixa Bravo, and maybe I'll bump it up to a C plus because I like Janixa Bravo. Because I mean, seriously, I mean, you know how I feel about directors, and when I like a director, that I'm willing to give that director the benefit of a doubt. But that
Well, just to update you, it is a BBC production, and it's being shown on BBC One in a couple months. So,
got it. All right, I appreciate that. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is the listeners.